congratulate you. Wonderful film. And what really struck me is this authenticity. You came from a very pure place, and I think that you also dealt with separation. You know, the schisms that we all face, the struggles that we all face. And the most interesting thing is that we sometimes don't want to face our fears or our struggles, or to admit, or to work from that. But that is what we grow from. That's what we grow from. And it's a shame that, you know, we don't do more of these kind of films or write more of these books, which are disturbing. Because I think you have to start from that place where you feel uncomfortable. My question to you is, what's next?
I wish I knew. I don't know what's next. This is the first time that I might be making an actual conscious choice, because a lot of films are coming now to me, which is a good thing, and it's a good problem to have, because now I have a lot of producers who are approaching me, a lot of scripts that are coming, and that's why I want to make sure that I pick the right one. And but I'm in no hurry. I have nothing to prove, and you know, just let's see where it goes. I have a child who has been neglected through all this journey, you know, of making the film. I've edited with him in my lap and taken him to the shoot with 45 degrees heat to the small village in Gujarat. So I want to spend some time. I also want to write about this journey, because there are many stories that were behind the camera, some of which I'm sharing today, but there are many other stories, very personal stories, and you know, more because this, for me, this whole experience of making Manto, these 6 years have been at 4 levels. There's one creative journey, there's an emotional journey, there's a socio-political journey, and there's a spiritual journey. And I want to be able to, and they're all coming together. It's not so sort of stratified in the way I'm saying it. So I want to be able to write something about it, but I don't know. But I'll definitely do a film, and it won't be a 10-year gap, that much I can assure you. And next time maybe I'll act in that film.
Okay, there's one there in the back over there, near the camera.
Excuse me. We get some water, please. This room temperature. Oh, really?
I apologize in advance because I got to the session a bit later. So much of what I'm about to ask, if this has been discussed in the session earlier or already, I apologize in advance. So I think in one of Mamoru Hosoda's films, he said, "In the tales of wolves is the hunters who die." So what he tried to say was that the story or the fact that the writers or the storytellers are trying to capture, it actually depends on who's telling it. So while the film Manto is actually about Manto, it's also very much about how Nandita Das sees Manto. And all the storytellers, like filmmakers, writers, they are all trying to rise above their subjectivity and to capture their subject. But there is only so much we can do, because we are humans too. So my question to you is, as a storyteller, where do you say is that acceptable margin where the subject and the storytellers and how the storyteller sees it is fine to express?
Yeah, it's very interesting what you're asking. One, I think that subjectivity is bound to happen. There's no way, I can only think like myself, right? Manto also says that. When the boy in that hall, he says that, you know, your stories are so depressing and nihilistic, people would want to die, want to kill themselves, would want to commit suicide. And he says, you know, yeah, if your name is Ansar, Shabnam, and whatever that is, because you only speak only about yourself. You don't know how others feel. So everything is subjective. That's why I said the film is what it is, good, bad, ugly. When you respond to the film and tell me different things, you're actually telling me more about yourself. And therefore, the film that I have made, of course, it's my interpretation, my perspective. Like, there are people who know me well, they come out and say, this film is as much about you as it's about Manto. I don't know what they mean, but they know me and they feel like, okay, there's a lot of her in it. And you do it unconsciously. You try and be as objective as you can, because you after all want to tell a story, you research, you're taking it based on real facts, and yet your interpretation comes in. So I'm not shying away from that. Even the same script, if it was made by 4 different directors, it would have been different. Manto subject in itself, if different people make it, it would be different. So I think there's no reason to shy away from that. And there was something at the end you said, sorry, I forgot. It was, did you say something about...
Like, as a storyteller, why would you find an acceptable margin? This is the subject and that's how I see him or her.
Yeah, but it's not a science. You see, film is not a science, it's an alchemy. It is, why do we consider it as an art? Because you can't say this much, I'll take 50% of this and 50% of that. You can't do that. So it just sort of organically, it is, I try to be as objective as I can, knowing that it is subjective. If you know what I mean. That's the paradox of it all.
If I may just ask an add-on question in it.
I know what you're getting at, and I triggered in my mind as well when you said.
Because there is another recent film that was made while you were making your film. There was also somebody in Pakistan who was making another film on Manto.
Yes.
So what are the differences between his approach, your approach, and why? What made your approach pertinent to you?
I started in 2012. Only when the film was made. In 2015, when I had gone to Lahore, that's when I met Salman Khusat, an actor who plays Manto and directed the film. He said he was also making a film on Manto. And I actually felt really happy that more the merrier, because they're all different perspectives and they will be very different films in their treatment and what they choose to tell and what they choose not to tell. Also, his period is the last 3 years. In fact, after my film finishes, 52 to 55. So it's very different. I've only seen the trailer. And now maybe I will see it, but I didn't want to see the film while I was working on it, just subconsciously if it impacts. But I did sessions on Manto with him. We did a session in Lahore, we did a session in Delhi to talk about, what is my Manto kind of versus your Manto. Also the interesting thing about film, and I say this also as a viewer, not just as a maker, in fact more as a viewer, that sometimes the intention, the invisible intent also reaches. When you say that there was a lot of you, or where did the objectivity, subjectivity went, or the lady here, when you said that it was authentic, how do we understand that intent? And I found that magical. Like if sometimes I've seen a film about, let's say, a rape scene, and sometimes it just churns your stomach in the way it's shot. You feel like completely troubled by it. And sometimes it's shot to almost titillate you. Right? It's the irony of it. But this is like an extreme and a more obvious case. But in some ways, I think इसमें उर्दू में बहुत अच्छा लफ्ज़ है नियत. The intent. Somehow the intent does get transferred through this, two-dimensional screen. I don't know how it happens, but we feel it. And I think that's when we make a connection. The film makes a connection with the viewer.
Okay, there's a question. This young girl in the aisle.
শুভ সন্ধ্যা নন্দিতা দিদি। আর আমার
শুভ সন্ধ্যা।
দুটো প্রশ্ন আছে, সেটা একটা হচ্ছে মান্টো নিয়ে না, তবে বলিউড নিয়ে।
বলিউড বিষয়ে খুব কম জানি, আপনারা বেশি জানবে, সেজন্য ডিফিকাল্ট কোয়েশ্চেনগুলো জিজ্ঞেস করবেন না।
বলিউডে মেয়েদের উপস্থাপনা যেভাবে করা হয় সেই বিষয়ে মতামত এবং যদি দায়বদ্ধতা থাকে, একটা প্রশ্ন। দ্বিতীয় প্রশ্ন
আবার বলুন সেটা।
দায়বদ্ধতা,
এটা কষ্ট শব্দ, এটাকে একটু ট্রান্সলেট করতে হবে। হোয়াট ইজ রেসপন্সিবিলিটি, দায়িত্ব।
এই বিষয়। আর দ্বিতীয় প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে, মান্টো করতে গিয়ে কি কখনো তসলিমা নাসরিনের কথা মনে হয়েছে? আরেকটা বিষয় জানতে চাই, আমরা যারা প্রশ্ন না, আমি উৎসাহ চাচ্ছি আপনার কাছ থেকে, যারা আমরা ক্যামেরার পেছনে কাজ করার স্বপ্ন দেখছি আমার মত, তাদের জন্য কিছু আজকে যদি বলেন।
Thank you. In terms of responsibility, আমাদের সবার আছে responsibility, right? As human beings, we all need to have that sense of social conscience. But we cannot tell each other. আমি বলতে পারি না যে, you're so young, you're a student. At this stage, it's very difficult for me. Why don't you do this? Or you are a journalist, আপনি এটা লিখছেন না কেন? আমি বলতে পারবো না এটা. And it's not my place to say. We can inspire us, we can suggest to each other, but primarily we are responsible for our acts and responses. But we of course rub off on each other. So I think each one of us needs to be responsible. Those of us who have a deeper sense of social consciousness, whether you tell me or not, it will gnaw at me, it will trouble me, and I will do what I do, or you will do probably more than what I do. And yet, I cannot judge you because I don't know what are your compulsions to do or not to do, and vice versa. So I supported a campaign called Dark is Beautiful. At that time, a lot of the interviewers would say that, why don't you tell your film fraternity people to not endorse these whiteness creams? So I said, well, I know Prochur Taka ache in that work, and I'm not judging it. They have their own reasons. And I would talk about it that I wish, the filmmakers or film actors wouldn't endorse, because do they know that how it impacts the self-esteem of young men and women, especially young girls? Through this campaign, I've got to hear so many horror stories that I couldn't imagine that this issue could even be a standalone issue. So, but it's not my place to tell X, Y, and Z saying, do not endorse this. Through our work, if it moves others and they choose not to, that's good enough. But let's point all our fingers to our own selves. That's the second question she said about Taslima Nasreen. Again, I say this film Manto is only a conduit. He's only a means. There are many Mantos in various genders, shapes and sizes, dead and alive, different languages. They exist, and we have lost one Manto, but we have to support the Mantos that are there today.
Second row.
And sorry, one more you said, what can I tell young, last one, tinte proshno chilo, what can I tell young people? হ্যাঁ, এটার পরে ছোট্ট আনসার দেবো। আমি লম্বা লম্বা আনসার দিয়ে আমি জানি একটু meandering, কিন্তু জীবনটা এরকম না, it's not so black and white and sound bites. Just believe in yourself and be wise about what you dream for, and let's all build our social conscience. Wherever we are, let's push it more. Okay. বলুন দাদা, কোথায় আপনি?
আমাদের যেটা জানবার সেটা হচ্ছে যে আমি কোনো না কোনো ফিল্ম মেকিং এর সাথে সম্পৃক্ত, তো এখানে ভয়াকরকে প্রডিউসার হিসেবে দেখলাম আপনার সিনেমাতে মেবি। তো আপনার এই মান্টো সিনেমার প্রডিউসার ম্যানেজমেন্টের জার্নিটা ছোট করে শুনতে চাই। আবার বিপরীতে আরেকটা প্রশ্ন, যে বলিউডের প্রডিউসার এই ধরনের প্রজেক্টকে কিভাবে দেখে, আপনার এক্সপিরিয়েন্সের মধ্যে দিয়ে জানতে চাই। ধন্যবাদ।
চারটে প্রডিউসার আছে, আমিও বাই ডিফল্ট একটা প্রডিউসার। অ্যাজ ইউ সো, I just Nandita Das initiatives একটা আমাকে করতে হলো just before the film, and I didn't do production because I thought if I say initiatives, it can do many other things. Maybe we'll do a Choto DLF at some point as part of the initiative, who knows. So there is HP, Hewlett Packard, যেটা ফিল্মের সঙ্গে কোনো ওদের connection নেই, but they've been official sponsors in Cannes, and I've known them for years. So because it was about a writer and their tagline is Power of the Ink, they decided to produce this. This is probably going to be the only film. I don't know if they're planning to do more films. Viacom ache arekta notun company film stock bole. This is their first film. So 4 of us together produced this film. Those 3 were investors, and I brought in the whole project together, including actors, crew, and many other things. Viacom, yes, the big producers, they look at it, unfortunately I would say, as a prestige project. যে কানে যাবে, কিছু অ্যাওয়ার্ডস পাবে, but it's a niche film. ওরা সব সময় সেটা বলে, it's a niche film, ছোট একটা ডিস্ট্রিবিউট করব. Most people don't want to see films like this, and maybe it's true, maybe I'm living in some illusion, and I really wanted to make it much more accessible than it was. But when the big Bollywood films come, these kind of films get killed. Because it's all about screen time, it's a nexus between exhibitors, distributors, producers, and there's very little as a filmmaker that you can do. The good thing is that one of the big digital platforms will take it up, and people will watch it on their device. Amra je eto detail kaj korechi, amader production design ba performance, and it's a whole different experience to see it on a big screen. And এটা তো Blu-ray, যখন আপনারা যান এই যে থিয়েটারে, then you see even a better quality because it's a DCP which is far more crisp. But that's I'm not a purist. আগে আমার খুব ইচ্ছে ছিল যে সবাই খালি থিয়েটারে দেখবে, but now I'm saying watch it wherever you can. Let this story reach the people.
Okay, the lady in the second row, please.
She's okay. You've changed your mind?
Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Oh, what's this? Yeah, I'm an admirer of Manto and writers of that era. The writers who wrote in Urdu in 1947 was Premchandar and Kuratul and Ismat Juftai. They were all the same group. But here, I just wanted a comment from you. Didn't you find similarity in Manto's writings? Because he also wrote a story called Kali Shalwar. So was he very kind of obsessed with women as sex workers? Because a lot of his stories have empathy for women in that profession.
Yes, because
Was that the reason that she picked those characters?
Yeah,
or
he
was
did.
it because his association with them was very close?
no, I mean that's the accusations, you know.
Yeah.
We also always conclude.
No, I'm not saying it was an accusation. No.
Sure. No, but I think he lived where he lived in Bombay, Forest Road, where he lived. The red light area was very close to him, and he talks about it. If you see the Irani cafe scene, he talks about the fact that how these women would go with all these vile men, and he was sort of very troubled by that. And what are their lives and what are they thinking? And you know, this was again fact and fiction merging. So I don't know whether he was obsessed, because he's also written about Tangawalas, he's written about pimps, he's written about local gundas, he's written about, you know, various people, especially partition stories. He's written a host of them. Someone has written 300 short stories, and you know, in 20 or 25 years of his life, it's a lot. But I think he was very troubled by the fact that sex workers were viewed with so much of sort of, you know, moral high-handedness. And that troubled him. He was a contrarian of sorts, and if you said this was really bad, that's the thing he would want to write most about. He was just, you know, he wanted to constantly prove you wrong. That was, you know, he had that was his wit also, and he wanted to he liked to poke a finger in the eye of any kind of orthodoxy or any kind of preconceived notion, and I think that intrigued him. And that's why he says, you know, we have the freedom to the men have the freedom to go there, but we don't have the freedom to write about it. Why is hypocrisy? And hypocrisy is also something that he deals with and talks about, especially in his essays.
I'm going to take one last question. I think that guy's had his hand up for a very long time.
I'm glad I'm not doing this work.
Okay, one last question. Yes.
I would like to congratulate you because this film for sure has so many achievements and accomplishments, but I'm pretty much impressed with two among others. Firstly, that telling the story of Manto through so many of Manto's stories, so story within stories, and secondly, bringing out in the courtroom sequence, bringing out the literary debate, apart from the issue of obscenity, which he was accused of, but the standard of literature, the debate between Faiz Ahmed Faiz and Manto, and that the directness, the boldness is a kind of, it derogates the quality of literature. And I would like to thank you for that. And in Bangladesh, of course, Manto is a less read author, but whenever personally I saw this film, a Bangladeshi character, partly relevant with partition, Qazi Nazrul Islam, resonated my mind so strongly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That
I hope
was
it
not
will
a
be
question, but we are out of time. Nandita's here, and maybe if you people...
But now I have to rush back, so I would request you to let me go because my son is waiting for a long time. But I'll be back tomorrow morning. We are talking about issues of women and representation of women in the industry with Manisha Koirala, and Sadaf is going to moderate that session.
So maybe you can catch her while she's rushing between panels or something. Thank you so much.